Ladies, gentlemen, welcome to another Both Sides episode. We're welcomed again by Adrian Oddi. If you don't remember, he was guest number 16. I think we're at episode number 130 something now, so it's been a while. Welcome back.
Good to be back.
Mate, you're probably the most tanned agent in Sydney at the moment, I've got to say.
Mate, you glowing.
It's just reflective of my holiday that I had. That's all it is.
So that's a European tan. Mate, I think a lot of the industry, knows your backstory and, how well you're doing. But the one thing that I loved about your ARIC speech this year was you uncovered a lot of hard truths that are usually not spoken about. There are a few tears in the crowd going as well, but you also shone light on things that, this work-life balance, this happiness piece that a lot of agents are skipping over. Can we go back a few years and just start to unearth what has transpired and what's changed in your life over the past few years since our last podcast?
I think on the first podcast, if I recall correctly, I spoke a lot about my relationship, my marriage, my children, how happy I was. And then I don't know what it was, but maybe months after that, perhaps I separated. So it was
such a surprise, eh?
Yeah. In fact, I remember talking to you about it, Dan, and it was a big surprise.
Podcast.
Yeah, you were about to do your own podcast.
I was, and the heading and the title was going to be something like "How to Have a Successful Marriage" or something like that. So it's just sort of ironic the way things sort of worked out. But the pivotal events for me were just obviously the separation and obviously getting sick, and then just this reevaluation of what's important. Because I think it's hard. If I said to you guys, you should do this, if I suggested something and I said you should do this because, that's not healthy or this will be better for you, you may or may not listen because everyone's got their own sort of view on, what to do. But for me, and probably like a lot of people, I had to experience a bit of a scare. And then when you sort of are faced with something like that, I was having a conversation this morning with somebody at the gym and I said, I'm the luckiest guy ever because the universe gave me a scare, but it gave me the most gentle scare you could. It gave me cancer, but it gave me kidney cancer. But it also, also found it really early. And there was also an opportunity to operate early. And there was also no need for chemo or immunotherapy. It was the best gift you could ever, the most gentle, best gift that I can look back and say that now that I could have got. And then also with the separation, this reevaluation of what I want from a relationship or, who I want to be in relationship. So I just had these couple of pivotal moments, which just meant that I went back to the drawing board and I guess with a degree of humility, only because the universe did humble me, I was able to start from scratch and then just recreate and essentially design a life that I felt I wanted to live.
Mate, it's quite inspiring because you didn't just get cancer and you didn't just have a marriage breakdown. You had two at once. And what's really inspiring from the outside looking in is to see somebody go through such a testing transformation and then come out of it an evolved, better person. Because when I first interviewed you, Oddi, I used to see you as not the James Bond in the sense that you were the Flash guy, but you, to me back then, were the one that I thought had it all together. I remember you were the guy in real estate that I thought had materially done well, had the relationship, was in good health. At the time, I think you were doing your keto or something, and you had your juice or something back then. You seem to have had it all worked out. And when you see somebody like yourself who's at the top go through something like that, it just shines a light that everyone's human and that we don't all have it figured out. So, mate, it was really inspiring for me to see, as the outside looking in, somebody at your stage fail forward, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. And I think there's a few things. There's what you see and what you don't see in life. And largely nowadays we use a filter of say Instagram, if you like. And people only put certain things on there. So you never really see the truth. I question how happy are people? And you also see people projecting what they have and you're can you actually afford that? And, you start to question things like that. You know what, something, guys, just something, I don't think I've ever shared this. I'm happy to share it now, but and I've made a decision that after this year, I'm not going to talk about my cancer anymore because it's just going to get old, right? It's just people know the story, so I don't want to bang on about it. But what happened to me, which was this prolonged lesson, was after I had the operation, I had to go back in December and have all these scans done to make sure that I was good. Now, I don't think I've actually shared this, but what happened in December was they found another lump, and they found a lump in my throat. And I got referred straight to the specialist as well. And they biopsied it. But when they did the biopsy, the conclusion they'd sort of formed before they had done any biopsy was that perhaps I had thyroid cancer, and that's where the kidney cancer came from. And I was like, oh, I feel like I've just dealt with all this, and I don't have much stamina to deal with this again. So they did a biopsy, but the biopsy came back inconclusive. And as a result of that, they made a recommendation that I should have an operation, and that operation would be half my thyroid chopped out and then medication for the rest of my life. But I said to the doctor at the time, like, what are my options outside of having that? Like, if I do have cancer, because it was another 3 months before I could go back and do the scan again, because it had to sort of settle down. I said, if I do have it, like, what's the risk of this spreading? And he said, it's pretty low risk, but just for your headspace, you know, the data suggests that it could be that. And I said, I can't do it because I can't have another operation right now. I'm just coming out of the first one, and I'm not mentally as strong as what I was for the first operation. So it actually, even though I had the operation 2 years ago, I did get the all clear, but I had to wait till Easter the following year, so 2024, before I finally got cleared of it, because I thought I probably had it up until then. I haven't shared that with many people because I think I just almost like tried to push that, or, you know, what's like, I just wanted to get rid of that memory.
Were you thinking about that every night until you got that all clear?
Yeah. Well, I don't know I'll tell you what did happen. When the doctor called me and I was waiting for the results, what I do know is I went in the boardroom and he said, "You're okay." I know that I just broke down and I just cried to myself. And I was like, thank God. Like, I can't, the thought of another operation, cancer, whatever it is. So for me, whilst I found it and I had the operation quickly, I stayed in this limbo period for, you know, almost 12 months. So again, it just meant that as I was rebuilding my life, that was in the back of my mind. And I was thinking, okay, rebuild this the way you want it. Rebuild it piece by piece. And just, you know, it always keeps you focused, at least subconsciously, on what's important.
I don't mean to bring you back to a dark place of limbo, but I know through my own experiences that limbo can be a time of challenge and struggle. And I'm sure there's heaps of agents or listeners out there that are maybe in this phase of limbo where they're a bit unsure, they're lacking clarity or guidance. What advice, Oddi, or wisdom do you have around being in limbo? How do people navigate that?
Yeah, good question. Like, if I'm honest, I don't swear much on podcasts, but it was fucked up, man. Honestly, like, I just think about it now and I'm like, oh, I actually feel sorry for myself. I know that might sound ridiculous, but I'm like that version of myself. Like, just to get the all clear and then to be stuck in limbo for so long, you know, like, I just think about that. I'm like, fuck, that was a shit period. So look, I think the way I dealt with it, I mean, I don't even know if I did deal with it. I just got on with things because I was like, there's nothing I can do. I just have to sit this out and wait until Easter. And at Easter time, I'm at the fork in the road. My life's either going to change or it's just going to be as it is, you know. But again, I made a decision. I feel like, and again, I'm having to think because I reckon I've really pushed this down because I just wanted to forget about it. I was really healthy in the lead up to the operation because that was the decision I made after the separation, but I probably wasn't as healthy. And I think that I probably I don't really comfort eat or anything like that, but I probably just wasn't like a 9.5 out of 10 when I arrived at that sort of, you know, the verdict of whether I had cancer or not in you know, around Easter. I probably did struggle a bit. I probably I just came off a little bit because I was like, I found it really hard, but I still did my best to turn up every day.
Were you working in that period?
Yeah. Like, life was just going on in the background, and I think I pretty much kept it to myself. I didn't really share it. I'm sure my immediate team, maybe Jasmine, was across it. I played it down to probably a lot of people. The irony is, and then we'll move on from this. So, like, when the doctor said that it probably is cancer, it might be cancer, but it's not a big deal, the thyroid stuff, right? I was down at the beach, and this was like December that year after he'd said, just come back in 3 months, whatever. And I saw a friend of mine who I went to school with, and he said, "Oh, mate, did you hear about my business partner who I know and I used to play soccer with?" And I said, "No, what happened?" He goes, "Oh, mate, he had thyroid cancer." And I was like, "Right." He goes, "Yeah, and it spread to his lymph nodes. And he's had this huge operation. He's got this massive scar." And like, I just died inside at that moment too, because I was like, that's what I could have. And the guy, like the doctor said, it's no big deal. And now someone who I know and know quite well has just had this massive operation and it's actually spread. Like, that's not what the doctor said to me. So like, that also played on my mind as well. So like, I don't know what like wisdom or advice I can give. Like, I just pulled myself through it because I was already in the thick of it. And it's hard because like I felt I'd come through it and then I jumped back straight in. And I was like, ugh. But I just kept going. I don't even know what to say. I just kept going, and that's just what I sort of do.
Yeah. Usually in those dark moments, people go one of two ways, right? Down or up. You've gone up. Now, when we were speaking on the phone yesterday, you also mentioned that, you discovered some more things about yourself over the past few weeks. Can we talk about that and what you've learned?
Yeah, well, it was just sort of circumstantial the last few weeks. So, like the way I would say, and the ARIC talk has helped me sort of maybe articulate myself and has helped me put a structure in place to explain to people what my belief system is now. So largely, like I reassess my priorities, and I understand, like my priorities are my health, my children, my work, my friends, and social engagements. And I, like that, they're my 4 buckets, right? I have goals that are reflective of that. And then I also, like when I have my goals, I have ambitions, and I have a way to track my goals as well. So it's just interesting because I went away and I did a family trip, like a modern family trip, to the snow with the kids and my ex-wife. And then
Well done.
Yeah. It was actually good. The kids learned how to ski, so it was very sad. Like at the time, it was hard, but I look back and I'm pretty proud of us for attempting that and doing it. But then I went away for 2 weeks. I went to Europe, and then when I got back, my ex-wife went away for 2.5 weeks to the States. So I had the kids full time. Now I know that sounds ridiculous because if you're a parent and you're in a relationship, you have the kids full time all the time. But it is a bit different. When you're separated, because like you have a routine that you build around when you have the kids and when you don't have the kids. So it's just one person with, 2 kids. So it was interesting because I got back, I probably didn't feel my best. I had COVID on the way. I must have got COVID on the way home. I wasn't training as much. I wasn't eating as much protein. So I just like wasn't happy with where I was at. And then when I got home, then I'm like, well, I've got the kids for the next 3 weeks, so I can't train at 6:30 a.m. and blah, blah, blah. But it was actually Ivan Bresic, who's my, business coach, who said to me, okay, well, what are you going to do about this? When are you going to train? Because you can't like just park this for 3 weeks. That's not going to work. And that coincided with me doing a DEXA scan. I don't know if you know about Measure Up DEXA in the city. Yep. So I did a scan, and the scan came back and it was a bit higher than what I thought. And then the conversation with Ivan, and then I just kicked into gear, and I was just like, okay, I have to reinvent myself for 3 weeks. Like, I don't like training in the afternoon, but I became super methodical, which I already am with my calendar. And I just thought to myself, I'm going to have to plan every day for the next 2.5, 3 weeks so I can fit all the things that are important in. Fit my health, fit the children, fit work, all this sort of stuff. So as a byproduct of that, that's just what I did. So my routine went from, and it might sound really like basic, but I went from having a 6:30 a.m. Gym session to like training at 4 o'clock, or if I couldn't do that, going for a run at 3 o'clock. And anyway, I slotted in training every day. I slotted in the kids every day. I slotted in work every day. And I'm just at the end of that 3 weeks where, Chloe's just come back. And I look at that, and again, it's that fork in the road thing. I'm like, I could have either just not trained and just had, made it an excuse, or trained, but I came out of it so good. Like, I feel that fit at the moment, and I feel that close to the kids, and I picked up at work, and I was like, awesome. Like, there's opportunity everywhere.
Firing on all cylinders.
Are you still doing jiu-jitsu at lunchtime?
No, I don't do that. I don't do jiu-jitsu at lunchtime because when I was doing that, I'd start early and finish a bit later. But now sometimes I don't get into 11 o'clock. And that's...
Tell us about that. What's shifted in you that makes you feel like you don't need to be there at 11, be there prior to 11?
Well, do you want to know about my morning? Because
Yeah,
it's
tell me,
probably...
please.
Okay, so I've got the kids back at the moment now. So what I try and do is my alarm goes off at 5:45. I mean, not that early, not crazy early. I'm not that 4:30 guy or whatever. So I get up early. I try and get up before the kids. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. So all I do is, like this morning I got up, you know, I teach my kids that when they get up as well, like we all make our bed. So like I try and teach them these little habits. So like I get them up, I get them to do their chores. Then they typically, you know, might sit in front of the television or something like that. In the process of doing that, I'll go in, I do my red light stuff because I've got a red light bed and a PEMF mat. So I do that sort of stuff. It's only like 15 minutes. Then I get out, I'll make the kids breakfast. I make them like 3 different types of breakfast. They think they're at a restaurant, but I make them everything like so that I'm just as accommodating as possible. I do all that. Then I have a shower. Like I'll have a quick coffee, clear my emails on the computer. So like everything I'm doing is so efficient. Sometimes I'm doing 2 things at once. And again, this might sound like the most basic stuff in the world, but I'm just not prepared to make any excuses, right? So I've cooked, and then might sit down if I, finish my coffee or not finish my coffee. I'll just sit down for the kids and like they watch this crazy like Survivor stuff on television. I love that they watch it and they're so interested. And I might sit there and talk to them about what's on television or whatever it is. And then I get them to school and I get them to school on time every morning. So like that's what I did. But I put my gym clothes on. I dropped the kids off at school at 8:30. I drove straight down I train at Iceberg's gym in Bondi. Straight down to the gym. I trained for an hour, like really, really hard. Got myself like a shake on the way home. Went home again, jumped into my emails, cleared all my emails. I was actually re-listening to a podcast that whole time because I just released one with my colleague, Tom McGlynn. So I'm listening to a podcast, training at the gym, like I'm doing it all. And then I got dressed and, quick call for my team, calls on the way to the office. So like I'm in at 11 o'clock, but my emails are under control. My clients are under control. My team is under control. My kids have been looked after and they've gone to school really happy and fed. And
what are the numbers like now that you've structured your life like this compared to 3-4 years ago when we did our first interview? Are the numbers similar?
When you say numbers, what do you mean?
The
GCI.
Sales and GCI.
Yeah, my GCI is probably a little bit higher. But
yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's probably a bit higher, but that comes just with time in the game and more opportunity where because I'm already sort of, what's the term, like flying or like I've already got momentum.
Traction agent.
Yeah. So I get the benefits of that. I mean, but that's, 23 years of doing this for 6 days a week, 8, 9, 10 hours a day. So I'm feeling the benefits at this stage of my career of that, but I'm also like more interested at the moment. Like if I look at my team, because I've got Jasmine and Jack in my team who are both agents, Jasmine's got 3 times more listens than what I do at the moment. And, Jack is also very busy and has had a fantastic year. So like me at the moment, I like what I'm doing and how I'm practicing. And what I'm managing, but I'm loving my team flying. And then I've also got some other purpose with some other side, my side hustle, which is
the potty.
Yeah. So like I feel like I'm living a very sort of, satisfying, rewarding life, but it's not just about GCI. Does that make sense? So I'm still up there. My GCI to Adrian Oddi real estate is probably the same. I'm definitely earning a little bit less, but one of the things, and this is what I would say to you, I can get myself in a knot too around why am I not doing more? Like you can sometimes your brain can go there, but when I write my goals at the start of the year, I also put down what I want to do every month, right? So like I have a certain target of what I want to earn every month and what that takes in the real estate world. So I had this moment because I'm away for July, and then I started beating myself up a little bit around, hang on, well, your June wasn't that good, your July wasn't that good. And I felt myself starting to, I don't know, like I was, it's just the way you talk to yourself, right? I was pretty hard on myself. But I went back and I looked at the numbers and I was like, I'm just marginally off track here. So who am I trying to compare myself to? Like, I made a decision at the start of the year around who I wanted to be and how I wanted to track. I'm essentially there right now. But, but when you lose that awareness, or you don't have a way to compare yourself to yourself or who you want to be, or you start looking at what others are doing, that's where the inner dialogue can get a little bit horrible. So that's my advice to, any agent. Comparison is okay because it shows you what's possible. But comparison where you start to hate yourself or you unfairly compare yourself to somebody, that's not okay. So for me, I'm just very, I know who I want to be. I'm conscious around the decisions that I make. And as a byproduct of that, all I have to do is deliver. Now, the last 3 weeks in particular, because I got back and like I said, I wasn't training much, and that's not where I wanted to be when I got back. So I'm going to admit that I was pretty hard on myself. I was like, no, mate, you need to train every day. You need to
7 days?
What's that?
When you mean every day, is that 7 days?
I call it 5 days, right? 5 days.
Working days.
Well, yeah, I got the kids all day Sunday, so like I can't train. I mean, but actually that's an excuse too, because you can still do 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats. I just didn't do it, okay? But, like in that instance, because I was off track with where I wanted to be, I immediately course corrected and got myself back on. So that required sacrifice. Calorie counting, training, no excuses, great sleep, bang, straight back on track. And it's the same thing. Like if my numbers were way off, then I know that I would have to go back into that, that area of my life and do what I need to do to get them back up. But at the moment, I'm just sort of tracking quite well on all fronts. Knowing
what you know now, would you have structured your day differently a few years ago?
Yeah, it's a good question. I get challenged on that a lot, right? But can I just give you an example? And I'm going to use Jack or Jasmine, but it doesn't matter. Say Jasmine or Jack. Now, when I consider my priorities, health, my family, work, socializing, my, advice to them is, why can't you have the same priorities? So if your health is important to you, you will make time to train. And like for me, health is sleep, nutrition, exercise. If it's important to you, you will make it happen. And how can that not be important to you? It should be the most important thing. So, okay, just because I can train, say at 6:30 or 7:30 a.m. or 9 a.m., why couldn't Jasmine or Jack train at, say, 6:30 every morning? Maybe they'd go earlier, 6 a.m. Because what I have is more flexibility, and that's a byproduct of my age and experience, etc. So if you don't have the same flexibility or the same time that I have, just make it fit, but just go earlier. So they can do that. They can train every day. That's not a thing. I talk about my children, but they can both be great partners to their partners, and they can make time to see their partners. Why wouldn't you be able to do that? You can do that. You don't this is real basic stuff. Then you think about your career. They have 8, 9 hours, 10 hours, whatever they want, 6 hours. They can work. They can choose how productive they are. I always come back to those fundamentals. They can decide what their product knowledge is like, what their buyer works like, what the seller works like. That's on them. So when you think about that, why can't they approach life the way I approach life? It's the same opportunity for all of us. You can slot that stuff in. It does just come at, and probably the difference between someone who's in their 40s and someone who's in their 20s is it probably comes at, a bit of sacrificing when it comes to socializing. So I get that. And again, I've never really been a huge socializer. I've never, the whole partying thing's just not something that's been a big thing for me. So I get that. That's where some of the compromises are probably made. So a bit easier in your 40s when you're like, yeah, I'm not going out past 9 o'clock or 9:30. Maybe that's different for someone in their 20s. Maybe they do want to do that on the weekends. I'm not sure. But, to answer your question, if I answer it with Jasmine and Jack as examples, why can't they do everything that I do? They can.
What's your leadership style like with them? Because you just mentioned that Jasmine's got double the amount of listings that you do at the moment. She's young, she's up and coming, and she's got that many listings on the go. How have you been able to lead them to become great listers, sellers, whilst also not being with you all the time, because you've also got your own stuff going on?
Yeah. Okay. So I think what real estate is in the first instance, it's like doing an apprenticeship. So you're just there to learn. So, I have largely been present and, been hands-on with the team.
Yeah.
But what's basically happened is that Jack, and Jack's been in the game longer than Jasmine, and now Jasmine is at a point where I feel like their skill set is sufficient. So not sufficient, I would say superior than mine. Yeah, I think that's fair. Superior to me. They are that good at what they do. It's bloody impressive. I watch them at open houses and sometimes I think, what am I doing here? These guys are so much better than me. Like they qualify, their knowledge, they're just that good at what they do, both of them. So for Jasmine, like if we focus on Jasmine, I'm observing and thinking her skill set is the only way for her skill set to get better is for her to get out there and jump in the pool or, jump in the deep end and do the work. Go and miss some listings and then reflect on that and ask yourself, what could I do better? And so I try and farm out as many opportunities as I can. Someone messaged me about selling before. I flicked it straight to Jack. I said, here you go, call this person. And there's actually a lot of that, or I'll meet a client and I say to the client, look, at this sort of price point, and you can start with a lower price point and build up. At this sort of price point, the real value is, the agent who knows all the buyers. I don't really know the buyers. And also, sometimes, especially if it's a first-home buyer property, I say to them, I also don't have the patience to deal, with a first-home buyer who doesn't understand the finance process, who wants a cooling off period, all this sort of stuff. I did for 15 years. But I'm just at a different stage in my career where I probably relate and enjoy more dealing with someone who is on their second or third or fourth transaction. So, I've just given Jasmine so many of those opportunities. And as a result, yeah, she missed a few, but yeah, she got some. And now she's listing like a senior agent. And now she's creating the same momentum. It's if to see it happen in front of you is just amazing. She said to me on Monday, all excited. She's also the most positive person you've ever met. I'm going to sell 7 properties this week. And I said, okay, how much of that is positivity and how much is it realistic? And she said, 5's realistic, 7's more optimistic. And I was like, go for it. Go for it. So, I think what I've done is I've just let go of a lot where probably a lot of agents be running out to try and list things themselves. And I just hand it to the team. And I'm like, when I do it, I know that this may or may not come back to, Adrian Oddi Real Estate, but there's definitely going to be a lesson in it either way. And we'll pick it up in the future.
And this has just changed for you. You were obviously main agent on everything. You weren't handing out those listings to your associates or co-agents. Why the shift?
That's a good question. I think because I put in my goals that I wanted my team to grow. That's something. I think that because after 20 plus years in the game, there has to be more to it than just selling houses. I also like selling houses and making money or trying to grab onto as much as you can, if that makes sense. And I know there is a period where you do things like that. I also think that perhaps one of the things that happened with my separation without talking about my personal financial situation is that I actually got rid of any debt that I had. So as a result of that, I don't have any financial pressure. So even that, for the first time in my life, I mean, I don't own a property. So that might come as a surprise to some.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't own a property. I mean, I bought and sold 8 times. And the last one I had was pretty expensive. But it doesn't... You know that the concept of not owning a property or being out of the property market a few years ago would have made me feel sick. And that's just the reality. Now, I could not care less.
Are you planning to buy back in? Even as an investment?
No, not really.
What are you going to put your money towards then?
Well, I've got a shareholding in Brisbane Whitney. So I do have some, I do have a wealth creation. I've got share. I've actually moved into shares actually.
Yeah.
So I do have a wealth creation strategy, but it just doesn't happen to involve property at the moment. But again, I can't stress enough, the thought of not owning a property really rattled me years ago. But it just comes back down to what my goals are and who I want to be. And, I've considered, if I was to buy a property right now, I mean, the reality as well is, I've just finalized my second divorce. But you know, for me to buy what I would consider to be, you know, appropriate for me in, say, Bondi Beach, because I want to be close to the water. For me to do that, I mean, I'm sure I could make it happen, but like the mortgage would be enormous. And I just don't want that anymore. Like, for what? Why would I do that? And I can be challenged on this by so many people, and I get it. And if you're ambitious, like, go for it. So like, I get it, because I was that person. But I just don't have that desire anymore. Like, just to say that I own a property, like, for me, it just doesn't make sense right now.
What's your overarching goal then? Because usually it's, you know, materialistic, money-wise, and that's what a lot of agents are in it for. What's your draw card to get out of bed now, if that's not what you're chasing?
It just comes back down to my priorities. I just love good health. I love feeling amazing every day. I mean, I was talking to Ivan this morning because he was one of the catalysts, and so was that DEXA scan that I did to just really course correct. And I took a photo and sent it to Ivan. I was like, look, I've changed since you saw me in Croatia, just as a joke, right? And I said to him, and he said, like, wow, I can't believe how much your body's changed. And I said, yeah, it's quite amazing what you can do in 3 weeks if you really commit to something and if you really want it. And I think you can do that with anything in life, with a relationship, with work. Like, you can course correct so quickly. It's just a decision. Once you make that decision, then you just follow through and you just take it day by day. So look, for me, I don't like have these grand ambitions. I just want to be fit and healthy, and you know, I feel like I'm very close to being where I want to be. I just want to be the best father to my children. That's just all that, like, that gives me so much happiness. I last week, as part of all this, right, woke up, did the kid thing, got them to school, went to work, had a pretty solid day. Somehow I think I managed to maybe get 2 or 3 listings, or maybe 2 listings and a couple of, something like that. I was like, that's pretty good. I went home. I think I left the office at 2:30. I left the office at 2. Got to the gym, trained for an hour. Straight from there, met my nanny with the kids, watched the new Jurassic Park movie at the movies with them after school. Then went and had sushi, trained with them, got them home to bed, read them a book, and I was like,
What a day.
fuck, that's a good day. Like, I worked hard, I trained, I spent quality time for my kids. Like, what more could you want out of a day than that? But that's just, I guess, where I'm at the moment. There is also an element, so I don't want this to be lost on, the audience, where I'm also reflective of a guy that has worked, like, my financial situation is reflective of somebody who has worked for 26 years.
And hard.
Worked hard, 26 years, 6 days a week. I started working when I was 17, I'm 43. 6 days a week. I've never had a Saturday, Sunday off. Like, I don't know what that, like, looks like, because that's never been a part of my adult life. I just know 6 days a week. I never had a holiday in the middle of the year. I think I've shared this till I was 35. Yeah. Never did that. And that's when I started having some time off, and maybe, the concept of Europe got introduced to me, and I learned about points and flying on points and all that sort of stuff. So
the good stuff. Thank you, Amex.
Yeah, thanks, Amex. Yeah, although they've changed the system now. So, like, for me, I just want to, like, share my financial position now is just, I'm just comfortable where, I've got good support around me. So, like, I have a nanny that can help. I have an amazing EA. I have an amazing team. I feel like my financial position is reflective of, I just have enough freedom to live the life where I don't have to think about it. And I'm also at a stage in my career where obviously I can, replenish my income every month. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say? So,
and not, like, with that, Adrian, do you think that there's an element of being able to blend both in your early stages of the career, or do you think you need to, in those early stages, do what you did?
I think you have to hustle at the start. Like, I'm going to say this, the first 4 years should be a hustle, because, like, let's just be real. Like, you're trying to get into a game, where there's so much at stake and there's people's life. Like, you're not just going to get in easily. You have to work for it. You have to earn that. So I do feel like, when I talk about lifestyle, yeah, if I let's say, got into a new market, I'm pretty sure I'd be hustling pretty hard, right? So that's just a given. I guess what I'm talking about is more so once you've completed your apprenticeship, that sort of phase, which a lot of us are in. But I think, there's no question that the first 4 years are going to be a grind, because that's just about learning and it's just about experience. It's actually not about money. Now, it's easy for someone like me to say that, because when I learned, and I think I've touched on this before, I was 20, I was living at home with my parents. I didn't have expenses, I didn't have kids, so it was easy for me just to put myself in a position where all I was focused on was just learning, getting experience. And I said that to myself, I just need to do this I did it for probably 3 years, that apprenticeship type piece. And then, I became a standalone agent. I just did it the wrong way. I just went too hard.
If you were to look back in the mirror, the year we did our first podcast together, what needed to change with that bloke?
There's a few things, right? I think the intensity that I had that year it just was not sustainable. So for example, like the pace that I was going at and my belief system that I could never crack had to be challenged. And that's why I say I had those two gifts of separation and illness, right? I wish I was able to articulate my priorities then. I probably wasn't. And, I had this belief that I was doing everything for my family, and, I put myself in a position where I bought a really expensive house that, I had to knock down, and, that was all pretty confronting for me, the amount of pressure that I put myself under, and I wasn't really aiming for anything. I was just aiming for more. So without this awareness around, what I needed or what I was aiming for, I just wanted more. So I was never going to be happy. And, I had these sort of beliefs around fear as well. There's certain things about my relationship that I probably, just as a man, I probably would do differently now. Like the way I would have led my relationship with my partner. That masculinity sort of topic is like my favorite at the moment, because I think we need really good male role models in society. There's, it was too masculine or toxic, whatever the term. And then it got like too course corrected. And again, we need to find some balance. And I think that's healthy for men. So it's hard, Dan, because there's so many answers. I was just on autopilot. Beliefs around business was a badge of honor. Just trying to get more. I don't even know what the hell I was trying to get, or, how hard I was trying to go. If I could go back and talk to that person, I would say, mate, just slow down and just have a look around. Look at your beautiful kids. Look at your wife. Look at the beautiful house you already live in. Right? What's your strategy here? And I would probably ask myself, why do you need that next jump up? Why is that important? And do you think that's going to make you happier? Or I would ask myself questions like that. So yeah, it's a hard one, because there's so many layers to that answer. I don't know.
That was a good answer. It was.
Was a good answer. Mate, in terms of Thomas Glynn, I haven't had the chance to listen to the Oddi Poddy yet. Only came out today. Now, Thomas Glynn, CEO of Brisbane Whitney. When did Brisbane Whitney decide to appoint a CEO, and how did it shift the business? Because obviously there's going to be, large independent offices, multi-office networks that are expanding. At what point do you think they should be putting someone like that on?
Yeah. Okay. So I think Ivan Bresic sold out of the business about 6 years ago. So prior to that, it was Ivan and Shannon, and there was myself and Will Phillips as partners.
Champion bloke.
Legend. Yeah.
We had him on at Byron.
Yeah. And actually there was Nicholas McAvoy as a partner too. He was the Hunters Hill contingent. So I think for us, where things started to change is, Ivan sold out, Will moved to Byron Bay and sold out as well. Then Shannon was in that position, and I think Shannon felt like maybe he wanted to go back on the tools. So it was just the natural, because there was so much change in the business. It was just time for a transition, and perhaps a transition and shift in ownership. And I remember, Shannon introducing Tom to me, and I remember being, really impressed by Tom. And to this day, like, I'm so impressed by him. He's incredible. But like, it was a bit of a big deal for Brisbane Whitney around, well, certainly for Shannon, for myself, and for others in the leadership group. But it was, like, we're passing the baton on to somebody. How do we know it's the right person? So a little bit like what we discussed where, with Jasmine and Jack, like, you just got to let go and then have faith that this is going to take care of itself. So, what happened is Tom just brought a whole different skill set to the table. And I think, in fairness, the current owners at the time gave him a very good platform to work with, and he's just taken that and made it even better. In fact, I think one of my reels that I've put on Instagram is like how he made a great culture even better. And that you have to credit, Tom and other people in management like Will Goss for, because that's what they did. They made it even better, and it was just natural. Like, a new skill set comes in, and that new skill set just elevates the business.
And does he help oversee like a sales manager role throughout the Brisbane Whitney network?
Does he say that again?
Does he act in sort of like a sales manager role throughout the network? No,
he doesn't.
Pure operations.
Yeah, we have Bianca Tortorella, who's the head of sales, who's been with the business for, I think, just maybe 10 or 12 years now. So no, he oversees everything. I personally, it's hard for me to elaborate because in the last couple of years, I've taken a step back from that sort of management type role. So I don't sit at the management meetings anymore. I'm just largely like a selling director, as is, say, Andrew Liddell. So, we all sort of, there's more of us. There's Chris Nunn, et cetera, who runs the Glebe. So there's lots of us who run the independent offices, but Tom is overseeing the whole thing. And he's just, his strategy, his culture, he's just all the important high-level stuff. He's just a really, like, the best thing about Tom is, my experience is that a lot of leaders are very sort of emotional, very sort of volatile, up and down. Tom just is this very calm presence. I think it would be very difficult to upset him. He thinks about his response. He's incredibly empathetic. He talks about that in the podcast. His ability to understand, like, who he's talking to, what they may be going through. And, like, I think he said in the podcast, when he joined, in the first 6 months, he met with every single person in the company and asked them for feedback.
You mentioned that he made a great culture better. How?
I think, so just one of the things that I said, because I asked him the question, right? And he said by asking for feedback and, by consciously trying to learn how the business could make everybody's life better, irrespective of what level you're at. So, like, I think some businesses only cater for certain types of agents, whereas this was about, it doesn't matter whether you want to do 100 sales or be the top agent at Brisbane Whitney, or you want to do 5. He was there to help you do better or achieve your goals. And that's what he understood.
Do you mind if I ask you for some feedback, Oddi?
Sure.
What do you feel holds you back the most now from being all you can be?
Probably not having bigger goals.
Not having bigger goals?
Yeah. Like, I've got this thing, I don't think I've ever shared this publicly, but I just put down that I want to have 50 million by 50. I don't know how I'm going to do it.
Now we're talking.
But, and I don't even know why I want that. Like, I don't know how my life would change right now if you put, like, okay, I probably know how some elements would change.
Mate, you've just highlighted that there's, what holds you back now is you feel like there's a bit more ambition left in the tank that can be hit, but then you've also shared that you'd like to hit 50 by 50. When I hear you say 50 by 50, I think there's a part of you that wants to be in the fight a bit more, but then maybe has these priorities. What are your thoughts on how you're going to navigate that process?
Okay, so I'll tell you what's interesting. It's weird because I don't want to talk about my podcast on another podcast, right? But when I think about that, maybe you guys can relate to this. I'm of the belief that whatever I put my mind to, I can do well and I can succeed at. And right now, actually, this is interesting. What I'm absolutely open to is the concept of one to many. You know, so for example, you guys have interviewed Benny Handler before, right? Okay, so obviously real estate is one-to-one. You know, you list a house, you sell a house. That's the sort of game that we play in. But
you're in this this is something cooking in the background, eh?
yeah, there's something.
Good man, I like this.
There's. I just feel like when I think about social media,
Yeah.
I feel like I've always felt like, oh, it's just like whether you got lots of followers or not, it's just a crock of shit, right? But more recently, I've met some people who have a strong social media profile and who are making bank off it more than most agents and doing it so differently. So,
E.g. Ben Handler.
Benny's one, and there's quite a few other. Well, there's a few others too, right?
Yeah.
So, I think about what I'm. I can't believe I'm about to tell you guys this, right? I think about what I'm passionate about. I'm really passionate about maybe three topics, right? What I said before. I'm passionate about leadership and being a good parent, right? I'm passionate about masculinity, and I'm passionate about like business success. So what I feel like is a good space for me, and the podcast is what's opened this up, is I love talking to people, but then I've noticed like what happens online. So your page goes from like, says, oh, like 30,000 people have looked at your page this month to like 250,000 people looked at your page this month. And you guys know this because you've done it times 20, whatever I'm talking about, times 100, right? So, and then all these people start reaching out to you and you're like, wow. So I feel like for me, I'm probably going to go into the coaching space, but I want to do it differently too. So like, I don't want to do the coaching, like have one client and, you know, charge them a lot of money. Like I want to be accessible. I want to be the mentor that I never had to lots of people, if that makes sense.
It does.
And I want to use my podcast as a vehicle to create an audience and a bit of a profile. And I feel like that's something that would give me so much passion running parallel to my real estate career.
Still in the same vertical.
It's, I don't know.
This sounds like your North Star.
I feel like that's where I'm starting to transition. So I'm not saying that I'm getting out of real estate. I'm definitely not doing that because I love what I do. I love who I work with. I still have a lot of passion, you know, and I have to do it. I want to do it. But I do feel like I'm at this transition period in my life and I've just discovered something, and you guys could probably like relate to this. Like I just always wanted to do a podcast, and then I do a podcast, and then there's like these benefits that come from it.
Yeah.
Well, I had like a few people ring up trying to refer me business in my core market. I'm like, okay, well, if I can convert one of those referrals, because as you guys know as well, like it's not cheap to have a podcast. I can't like, I heard the snippet on Instagram around what you guys are doing, but I'm well over 10 grand in investment, and I've only done 6 episodes, right? I think I'm well over that, right? Because I've recorded 5 that I didn't use.
You're like a cheap.
Yeah, I know, and I haven't started the travel to like go into people yet or anything like that. So yeah, I totally hear you. So look, I think for me, this is something that's been brewing in the background, and it is something that I've laid into my goals. So it's probably the missing piece when I say like my what holds me back are my goals, but at the moment I actually do have something, and somehow I've just shared it, which is I want to tap into that coaching space. I mean, I can say it now, but it could be delusional, but I would love to have 100,000 subscribers, you know, behind, you know, just paying a nominal amount a week where I can be for them, you know, once I feel like I'm worthy, the mentor that I wish I had or that my son had. Yeah.
What do you think it would mean to you when that mentee goes, Oddi, you're that guy I've been looking for that I didn't have?
What does it mean to me? I don't know. I just love helping people. I just love helping people. I love seeing Jasmine and Jack fly. You know, I've played a bit of a role in Andrew Liddell's life. I'm just so happy for the guy. I love doing training. I love sharing. If I do a training session, I share everything. I don't hold back. I will tell you, if you work at Brisbane Whitney, you want to meet for me, I will tell you everything that I know. and I hope that you go and do it. I've had people in my life who I've looked up to, who have been very generous with me, and I've always appreciated that. And that's what I want to give back. I had a really good conversation with a guy at the gym this morning, and like he said, like, I saw your Instagram page, and I saw your post about your illness, and like, well done. And I explained to him like concept of like that was the best gift the universe could have ever given me, and he sort of looked at me a bit not confused, but he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, if I didn't get that, I wouldn't have changed. And then like I just kept sharing with him some of my beliefs, and like one of my fundamental beliefs is, as a man, be the man that you want your daughter to marry.
The man you want your daughter to marry.
Behave like that guy. Be the man you want your daughter to marry. And I'll share with you why I say that, because when it comes to making decisions, how do you want your daughter's husband to be? Like, you want him to be the best man in the world, right? So in one way, that can be your North Star for decisions, because I bet you'll make good decisions when you think, that's my daughter. I have a daughter, so like that's why it's so, it means so much to me. But also think about this. If I can be the best version of myself, I'm just modeling to my daughter, what her future husband should be or could be, and what, so I want to model all the right things. So what she accepts is only going to be like the best man, because she'll compare every man to me. That's what I want. I want her to compare every man to her dad, and then she'll find the right one and say, this is my man. Like, I believe in that. And like, I'll share this. This is also a bit of an interesting story. My daughter just got accepted into one of the private schools. I won't say which one, right? And you have to go in for an interview. I missed the whole private school thing, right? No idea about it. So I remember Chloe messaged me and she said, okay, we got this interview this morning. It wasn't that long ago. And she said to me, these are the questions and I've got some answers. Can we meet so we can talk about the answers? Like, why would we need to talk about the answers? And she's like, you don't get it. This is the private school thing. So I sat with her and like she read the questions to me and she gave me these answers she'd come up with. And I was like, that's really good, Chloe. Like, that's just not me. It doesn't feel authentic, but like if that's the game, like that's the game. Anyway, so we went in, we met with the principal because it's an interview process. And you know what? To Chloe's credit, Chloe did what Chloe does. She's like so good at, like she's just a great salesperson. She's a gun, right? But then the principal said to me, do you have any questions for me? And I said, yeah, I do have a question for you. And I said, it's different to what we've been talking about. My question is this. And like, I just gave her a tiny backstory. I said, like, from the day Chloe told me that she was pregnant, I remember where I was in the car. I remember how I felt. And I remember that my life changed in that second. And I said, I'm going to be the best version of me. That's what I'm going to do. So I said, what I want to ask you is, I have my child all the time and I'm the best version of me, but I have to pass the baton at 8:30 a.m. to somebody. I have to give that baton to someone and then I get it back at 3 o'clock. Now, I know what I can do. I know who I am. But my question to you is, why should I give the baton to you? And that's what I asked the principal.
Powerful.
Yeah. And like I said to her, I know what values I want to instill in my daughter and my son, right? And there are things like, I said to her, the mental health thing with girls and, sending pictures and stuff like that. How are you going to assist with all of that? And the other thing, like with the whole schooling system is, I don't know, rightly or wrongly, I felt like, the school system builds kids up so that they're they're the best version in year 12 and they get a HSC or whatever it's called now. And then they go to uni. But like, I feel like that system is broken. Like, I want my daughter to be her best in year 1 and year 2, like not this huge build up to year 12 to this exam for her to decide what she wants to do if she wants to go to uni, because the whole world's changing anyway. So like, that was a big thing. And like I said to the principal, I will give you a leader. I will give you a leader. I know my daughter's going to be a leader. I'll give you a leader. I'll give you a potential future school captain, someone who you want culturally in this place. But you just have to tell me why should I give it to you? Why do I give you the baton?
Made her qualify herself back to you.
Yeah, well, she got accepted, which was good. So, but it was like, I think the principal actually, she was very nice, and she appreciated the question, and she did her best to reassure me around what the school could do, and like her answer was good, and I felt like it was authentic, and that put me at ease, and then she was accepted. So yeah, she starts next year.
Congrats, mate.
Congrats. Bringing it back to the coaching piece, I think you'd add a lot of value to the industry, and it's no knock on any coaches that are not in real estate right now, because I've used them too. But having a coach or a mentor that's actually in the trenches doing the work, I think that's going to be the real key for you, and why everyone's going to be attracted. It's not just because it's Adrian Oddi, it's because Adrian Oddi's in the trenches. I think that's what's going to attract a lot of clients to you. Question though, because I tried doing that and I parked it. I said I couldn't do too much. I was spreading way too thin. How do you think you're going to manage listing and selling real estate, being a father, doing the podcast, doing the coaching without spreading too thin?
Yeah, so with extreme organization, which is, I've spoken about this, I organize my diary 7 days in advance. Today's Thursday, tomorrow I'll organize the next 7 days, and I will stick to it with absolute discipline. So what I schedule in the diary is what will happen, and the other thing is I just have great people around me. So for example, rather than me try and figure that out myself, I've been approached by someone who wants to be my agent, and I'm waiting for a proposal to come back so I can understand, okay, I've said to this person, this is what I want for my podcast, and this is where I think it could go. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Because I've started it just for fun, right? Probably like you guys. And then it creates opportunities, and before you know it, it actually gives you a bit of purpose, and you love talking to people, right?
I think we said that to you before too. Like things are just going to start getting thrown at you where you didn't realize what was going to happen.
How rewarding have you found is a really good conversation with someone, and then people reaching out to you saying, I really enjoyed that, thank you. Right. Or even better, what I found a lot of satisfaction is when I interviewed Shannon, I felt like I was able to put Shannon Whitney, or give access to, the community, to the Shannon that I've known, who's been my mentor for more than 15 years, 17 years. So it was, people were able to celebrate him. Oh my God, I can't tell you the satisfaction that I got out of that. So as you can see, I'm looking in these other areas for more purpose, because of 23 years of doing what I do. I am looking for more. But look, I think if I'm really well organized, and again,
priorities.
It's just priorities, yeah. Okay, so my children, I have the best nanny. I was super diligent around how I interviewed, who I interviewed, what I was prepared to pay. That's just the reality. I got the best nanny, and she is amazing, right? My EA is amazing. My team is amazing. So I'm just very diligent around the people that I put around me. And I'm also I hope they would say that I'm very generous with how I pay as well, because I'm not I don't even my EA, Danny, if she wants to leave the office, leave the office. I have total trust in what she does. If I need something done, Danny, I need this done. On the weekend, I exchanged something. It was a Saturday. We're trying to get it done before the 10 o'clock open house. Danny doesn't work on Saturdays, but I called her at 9:30 and I said, Danny, I'm really sorry, but do you have your laptop? And she's like, yeah. I said, I need an exchange. She's like, done, I'll do it. I don't ask for that all the time though. So I don't take the piss and ask her to do stuff late at night or anything like that. Although when I think about it, I did call out last night at 8 o'clock after I put the kids to bed, and we just had a 5-minute debrief. But that's more rare for me. Yeah. I totally respect their time. So I think, if I can put the right person in play who's got experience in, whatever it is, building a podcast and creating a course or something like that, that'll help. So it's just the combination of the desire to do it, the right person helping me do it, and then creating time for it.
You've experienced burnout throughout your career, and you've spoken about it before. Take, for example, Zach Vittenry. You've seen him smash it hard. Jack's very much the same. They're running at a really hard pace. At what point should these guys take small breaks off? Should they not be taking breaks off because they're still, building? What's your suggestion to those young up and comers?
It's a very good question. So I watch Zach. God, he's impressive. He came up for document today, which is like off-market sales we've had, and the listing agent and the selling agent, whoever introduced the buyer. I mean, he's probably responsible for 40 to 50% of intros.
Jeez.
Yeah, if you list something, I call Zach now too. I'm like, "Mate, do you have a buy for this?" And I did list something the other day in Balmain, a townhouse. There's been 5 people through, 4 of them he got.
Wow.
Just like, he's doing private appointments. In fact, I gave him the owner's number. This is, I guess, where I changed too. I'm like, here's the owner's number. He knows you now. Just call him and update him. I don't need to be the middleman anymore. You just call him. So you see how like you make subtle tweaks like that, and then less load for me, more empowering for Zach. And now he gets to learn how to deal with an owner and deliver feedback. And so,
but he doesn't know how to turn off.
He doesn't know. Yeah, he's I sent him a message the other day. I think it was like at 7 a.m. He was peppering me for questions, and I was like, "Mate, can I just be at the can you just give me like 10 minutes, please?" But he's that on it, right? Because the email had come out around new listing signed. He saw it. He's like, "Tell me about this. Tell me about this. Tell me about this." And I'm like, I actually said to him, it was a property in Roselle. I was like, "I don't even have photos." Like I said, "We're getting photos on Wednesday." He sent me a link with photos. I was like, "Where did you find that?" I'm like, "You're such a freak." Like he's like unbelievable. Freaky good is how good he is, right? So look, I do think, he's early 20s. So again, it's different. In that early 20s, he can probably run on adrenaline. Only Zach knows when he's pushing too hard now. And I think he did have a week off recently. I don't think I was there. Yeah. Which is clever. So only Zach can tell you what's too much. But certainly I would say his like window of tolerance, if you like, is certainly greater than someone who's twice his age, who's got a whole lot of other responsibilities. So I don't think he should, I think he still needs to have a life. I think that's really important. Zach does train. He does eat well. I see it. He's very strict on his training and his eating. So he's already physically in amazing shape. He just has to watch how much he does in a day, because I see him sometimes. I said to him yesterday, I said, "You look stressed out." And he said, "Yeah," but he's just taking on so much. But that's okay, because it's probably better he peels it back than like me having to have a conversation with someone like, "You need to push a bit harder."
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So
yeah,
he's doing his apprenticeship and he's doing bloody well. And, as soon as he steps out of that apprenticeship phase, I think he can start to really think about what his priorities are and how he wants to make that and keep that sustainable.
So they shouldn't, at that age and at that stage of their career, be structuring in every 2-3 month holidays at this point, or no, just when they know it's time to take some time off, not pre-planned.
No, I think he can still be planned. I mean, it may not be a week off though. So I think for Zach, I'm just thinking out loud, right? So let's say he had some time off. We've got an October long weekend coming up. Maybe that would be an opportunity where he could have 3 or 4 days, and that would probably then carry him through to the end of the year. So, and then at the end of the year, you can have 2-3 weeks off. That's probably sufficient for someone in their early 20s. But again, it's reflective of he's on a mission. So he's pushing hard, and he's trying to expose himself to the market as much so that, he can see the rewards in years from now. So, yeah, I don't think it would make sense for him to have a month off and go to Europe in July and then have a week off or 2 weeks off at Easter. No, I don't think that's appropriate. But I do think he should schedule some time out. It just may be a smaller break, 3 days. 3 days can feels like a lot sometimes.
So you just mentioned that, he's in that past email, he accounted for like 40 or 50% of those buyer introductions. Why has he separated himself from the rest in such a short time span in Brisbane Whitney? What's he doing differently?
It's just output. It's just output. I want to celebrate Zach, but not necessarily make anyone else feel like they're not.
Course.
Yeah. So Zach is actually in it probably 7 7:30 most days. That's after he's been and trained, I think. I don't know if he trains at night or in the morning, but he does get in really early. He hits the phones really hard. I'll say this because I always come back to those three things. His product knowledge is 10 out of 10. His buyer work is 10 out of 10. So his seller work will come, but because his knowledge is so good and because his buyer work's so good, when he merges those two and he's just making these calls into the market, and let's say he's doing that 20, 30, 40, 50 times a day, it's going to be very difficult. You know, like he's the first person to communicate a new opportunity to somebody. He just does that so well. He's just so sharp. So his awareness, like his qualification is brilliant. So that, like, these are the things that he's learned. So he meets a high volume of people because he works in Andrew's team. So he's actually meeting lots of people, but not only is he then able to understand what are these people doing, he then starts to build a relationship with them. So he just would have in Balmain at the moment, I would argue, more relationships with more buyers than any other agent. And I would say, wow, in some instances, like 10 times more than some of our competitors, because maybe they don't even have like a buyer practice like that. So Zach right now would make more calls to more buyers and have more relationships with more buyers, more qualified buyers than anybody else in our market. And he's just stretched out his day because he works long hours. He's just doing that for almost 10, 12 hours a day. Like, what do you think is going to happen as a result of that?
Yeah.
What else can possibly happen? It's you know, the success has to go somewhere. It's going to go to him. And then, you know, I would say some of the things that sort of correlate to some success at the moment. So Andrew Liddell, his buyer practice is unbelievable. He can tell you, I actually did an appraisal the other day on this appointment. The guy was at my desk and I called Andy over and I was like, can you just tell me like who bought this? Because I've been away. And he's like, this person. And he says, the underbidder was this. Next house, he goes, these guys bought that. They also missed that. They were on this other house that I had. And I'm like, he's just piecing together the market, like just connecting the dots. That's Andrew. Jasmine, her buyer list, unbelievable at the moment. And then like, this is just the way we sort of built the business. Troy, who's in our team as well, who works with Jack, Troy's now starting to ring me, like, how about this, at 7 a.m, because he's obviously caught on to what Zach's doing and he's asking about listings and he's like, what's this listing? And he wants to start calling his people. So it's not like a competitive, I've got to get to the buyer first. It's not that. It's a cultural thing, you know? So all of a sudden, without me being there, so I'm at the gym or whatever it is, I'm still at home at 10 o'clock, 10:30, but in the office, because of, you know, people like Zach and just the culture, the calls are now starting at, you know, 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. or whatever it is, right? But you can see how Zach starts to lift everybody.
Yeah.
So
it was a great culture piece within Manor as well. For these young guys, as they're transitioning, in terms of listing appointment, because I actually asked Zach this, I said, what does Andrew actually bring into his listing presentation? He goes, an agency agreement. That's it. How do you teach these guys how to list when you guys are so well versed in the area that you don't even need a CMA report? You don't have any, you know, material to run off. How are you actually teaching your young guys how to list?
Okay, well, firstly, I've never been an advocate, and I think, you know, and it's probably rubbed off on Andy or Whip, like taking in graphs and all this sort of whatever it is, paraphernalia, whatever. I just, that doesn't get you listings. Like, that's my view. That you can have every graph, and like, in fact, in some cases, I just feel like it breaks eye contact. So I think if, you know, like, let me ask you this conceptually, right? Why would you interview, let's say you're a buyer in Balmain and Zach had been ringing you for 3 months straight, making suggestions, not only on Brisbane Whitney stuff, but competitor stuff, offering you intel, what he's saying is coming through. So let's say you had that experience, then you interviewed him. Why are you interviewing him?
Because I know that he's on top of buyers and I want buyers.
Yeah. So why do you need a graph at a listing appointment? He got the listing when he started building a relationship 3 months ago. That's why he can take an agency agreement in. Like, what are we going to sit there and talk about market share? You've been in the market for 3 months. What did you experience? Who else called you like at 7 a.m. on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Who else was making suggestion? Who else was telling you about off-market stuff so with competitors? Like, who else is giving you intel on properties, and, what you're saying is completely different to what, say, the competitor or the selling agent was saying, and what he's saying is right. Like, he's just built all this credibility, and he's also suggesting things in other suburbs because that's the way we work at Brisbane Whitney. So when you think about that, I think this goes back to sort of early days Brisbane Whitney, and I'm only speaking about the Balmain office, right? You can make a decision as an agent. Who do you want to focus on? Do you want to focus on sellers, or do you want to focus on buyers? Now, I made the decision in the early days that we would focus on buyers. And the reason why we did that, because my view is, if I was a seller, I want the agent who's got all the buyers, right? But when you're playing the seller game and you turn up to work and all you're doing is cold calling people, or you're ringing your database every 3 months asking them if they want to sell, you're just playing the seller game. That's just like cold call. I don't know. Like, I never really quite understood that, right? But if you're playing the buyer game, and I remember in the early days, right? So the concept of qualification is something that I introduced like right at the beginning, and I was taught it by Shannon Whitney. So I'd ask people at the front door, like I'd say, Kev, like, nice to meet you. Are you looking to buy at the moment? Or I'd leave it open, like, or. And sometimes people would say, no, we're not buying. Okay, what brings you here today? So I was trying to establish at the front door this filter around who am I dealing with and how do I add value to this person's life. Some people would say, we're looking to sell. Awesome, where are you looking to sell? Now, in the sell example, this is something that I did multiple times. Someone would say, I'm looking to sell. And I'd say, Kev, I really want to talk to you. I'm very interested in talking to you about the sale of your house, but right now I need to focus on the buyers. Can I call you later? And I would do that. And then when I would go in for the listing appointment, if I was against other agents, I would ask the question, did anybody else ask you if you want to sell? Yeah. How much time did they give you? Oh, they did. They stuck to me like, did they ignore the buyers at the open house that they're at? Yeah, they did. Okay, well, let's unpack that. This is why, and that was the different game that Brisbane Whitney played. So by adding value to buyers and building relationships in that space, that helped us dramatically. And it also gave us credibility because we could sit with someone. Zach can sit with someone and say, here's, like, you have a 2-bedroom house, here's the last 10 sales, and he can dissect every sale. And he could probably say, here's the next 10 buyers for a 2-bedroom house. Now, if you compare that to what someone else is talking about, oh, our brand and we're these colors and we'll put you on the website, like, okay, like, that's all well and good. I get that sales pitch, or, we've been around for 30 years. I don't know, whatever agents talk about, right? Okay. But Zach is there and he is like a specialist saying, these are the last 10 sales. Let me tell you about them. But also let me tell you about if there are 10 sales in the area, it's going to be one of these buyers. And these are the reasons why. Can I get them through? And that's just a different game. So like Andy sort of, when it takes time, but when you intertwine knowledge with a really good buyer practice, then you start to add value differently at a listing appointment. And then you're moving away from graphs and things like that. Does that make sense?
I think it's a no-brainer. From my perspective, not being a selling agent, I think it's like a no-brainer. Yeah. It's like you'd be silly not to do that.
Yeah, it's just the system. You won't hear this, but like Maclay Longhurst, for example, who's one of the best agents in the country. I remember like talking to him about this, and like him, like it's sort of like he started playing that game and he plays it so well now. Like his knowledge and and like now he's whatever it is, number 2 or 3 in the country. But it's from approaching a sale from a different. I say to everyone, just move away from the pitch. Everyone's got a good pitch. Everyone's going to tell you the best. Everyone's going to probably slag everybody else, right? So I try and make the focus on, before we talk about anything, let's not talk about what someone's going to do for you. Let's talk about what they've done. So let's just look at the last 12 months. Is this person saying they're going to do this, this, and this, and this? Okay, how many times have they done that in the last 12 months? One of my best friends rung me. He's got a development site in Tama. It's probably, I don't know, like $80 or $100 million finished. And he called me and he said to me, Adrian, okay, I just want to run it by you. This is what I'm thinking. I've got this guy, and this guy, and I want the person with the best database. And I said, okay, do you still want to go on realestateanddomain.com? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, mate, they're the 2 best databases in the country. because that's where all the buyers are. And like an agent database is just sort of like, it's a value add. It's a point of difference on top of that. I said, so what I would do is like the agents you're talking about, my question is this: don't worry about, they're all going to tell you they can do it, but ask them, how many 15 or $18 million apartments have you sold off the plan in the last 12 months or 2 years? Now, if the answer is none, and I'm tipping for 2 of those agents, that is the answer, who cares how good their database is? Because it's, you know, this is just not something they've had any success in. So why would you give it to them? Because they're probably going to learn as they go on your $18 million asset times 5 or 6 or whatever he's got, right? So I tend to also, you know, encourage people to focus on not what people say, because when you think about the concept of what people say, everyone at a listing appointment's got a buyer. Everyone at a listing appointment's popular, like, you know, positive. So why is the clearance rate 50 or 60% then, the auction clearance rate? What happened to 40 or 50% of those conversations? Because I guarantee you, every agent had a buyer. Oh, I got a buyer for this. I got a buyer for... Where's your buyer? Because obviously people aren't telling the truth when they pitch. Like, they're just selling themselves, and the pitch is the pitch. So I do tend to put a lot of focus on, let's just step this back. Let's just look at the last 12 months. How many times have they done this? How many houses? How many apartments? What's the average sale price? What's the average selling time? What's the auction clearance rate? What's the pricing advice like? Let's just start with that, because that might change some of the conversations that are about to happen. So like, there's so many layers to how you would sit in front of a seller and what you can talk to them about. Largely in 2013, when the Brisbane Whitney journey started in Balmain, we played the buyer game. We still play the buyer game. The buyer game produces more listings than obviously the seller game, because a lot of our competitors are playing the seller game.
Well done, mate. Do you have any last? I've got one last question, but
Go.
did you want
You
to
go.
add anything to that topic before? No. All right. Thank you for all the insights with selling real estate, mate. I've just got one last question for you, just out of curiosity. I have to ask. You said 50 million by 50 is a cool throwaway goal, but mate, why not 100 million by 50?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't need 100 million. I don't know, like, because I've made the correlation to, like, I think when I say 50 million is maybe just security in my old age, like way too much security, but I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not, I feel so strongly that, again, when it comes to money, you get to a point where what you have provides a degree of freedom. And I think there's a lot of people with $100 million that are really unhappy. In fact, I'd say there's lots of people that have got $50 million that are really unhappy. And I would say that there's lots of people with $50 or $100 million that are still complaining about money. So is money really the issue?
Well said.
That's what I would say. So, yeah, maybe I'd upgrade my car if I had more money, but it wouldn't change a conversation like this. It wouldn't change where I eat. It wouldn't really change where I holiday. It wouldn't give me, you know, more time with my kids, because I still need to do and work, because I still want to have purpose outside, like in my different buckets. So I don't want to be naive, and someone who's got $50 or $100 million probably laughing at me going, what a loser, right? Maybe that's what they're saying, maybe not, I don't know. But yeah, I don't think that is the solution to living a happy life. I feel like I'm very content and very satisfied with the life that I've created for myself. Guys, I love my apartment. Home is just like a space. Whether you own it or not, in my view, doesn't actually make a difference, right? It's just how you feel where you're there. Like, home is how you feel. And I feel fantastic in my rental. Now, it's a nice rental, so I'm not taking away from that. So, you know, again, reflective of what I've worked for and where I am. But home is how I feel. When I walk into my apartment, I feel like so good, because it's exactly the way I want it. And I've consciously created that space for me that makes me feel good, that makes my children feel good. So I guess, yeah, the topic of money, or like I've maybe 50 million is just, maybe I said 50 because of 50. I don't know, I'll be 50 by 50. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure, man.
Mate, my last question for you. If and when the next relationship comes along, what's the key thing you'd do differently to make sure that this time there's no breakdown?
That's a long answer, man. I'll do my best to answer it. I'm definitely open to a new relationship. I've been doing a lot of work with a guy called Jaguar Heart, who is, really focuses on masculinity. He's actually good friends with Benny Handler. They live in Byron. I've learned a lot from Jag around embracing my power as a man, my masculinity, and about leading a relationship. So I think it's hard to say, because my answer might look like I'm undermining my ex-wife, so it's I've got to be very delicate with how I deliver this. But certainly, look, I'm open to a relationship, and I think what I'm looking for this time, not this time, but what I would like is to experience like a sense of calm in a relationship. I don't want to take away from Chloe when I say that, because I had a very happy relationship, so I don't want to do that. But there's I'm if I had to give someone, my son, dating advice, because this is what I'm doing at the moment, I'm not that interested in going on a date and starting a relationship from a date, because a date, without sounding insensitive, can be a bit like a job interview. Everyone's on their best behavior, right? But we'll relate it to work, right? So if you hire someone, it usually takes a week or two and things start to unravel, because what they said they could do at the interview and the salary they wanted doesn't start to stack up anymore, right? And I noticed that, right, in my business. But if you then take some other measures, so for example, you interview someone and then you say, look, I'm going to trial you, and I'm going to trial you on a couple of occasions just to see let's see if you can do what you said you're going to do. That's a really good place then to hire somebody, right? And I think the same thing with relationships. I'm really interested in meeting people through new friendships, not like that going on a date and then someone says, oh yeah, I'm like, yeah, I love getting up early and all this. So I love going to but you don't, you're just saying it, right? So, I'm open to new friendships. I want to make sure that there's a really strong value alignment from the get-go. And, I really want someone who, through my masculinity can feel like they're in their feminine. And, I just want like probably what everyone wants, just a respectable, calm, relationship. Again, there's more to it, but I don't want this for a second to take away from the respect that I have for my ex-wife. And I'm not saying that's what I had or didn't have in my last relationship, but that's sort of what I'm looking for now. So yeah, just that strong value alignment from the beginning. And yeah, I'm totally open to it. I was a bit traumatized for a while, but I probably still am a bit, but yeah, I'm curious around what happens.
Ladies, his number, go on to realestate.com. You'll see his listing. His number's right there. But mate, thank you so much for coming on again. Thank you to Theodore for hosting us. But mate, what a banger podcast.
Do you have any questions for us?
I watched the reels that you guys put on yesterday, so this may not be relevant in a few months if someone's listening, but I'm curious, as how do you define yourselves, as agents or podcasters, or how would you describe yourselves?
I would say I'd say more of an entrepreneur, but someone building a life by design.
Kev?
Yeah. The way that I see it is I'm an entrepreneur because I've got caliber, talent, and the rest of it. But if you asked me probably like 6 months ago, I'd say I'm a real estate agent that does podcasting on the side.
And when you started the podcast, what were you hoping to get from it?
To get in the room with people like you. and ask our own questions.
And where is that taking you?
So now we've built a top of funnel, which in a sales cycle or a business supply chain of getting, a way to monetize it, we're at a stage where that's a reality for us. So it's evolved from, like Kev said, a platform where we will ask, getting in the door with people like yourself for an hour. And instead of having to pay you a coaching fee, we get to have an hour of your time and then share that with a wider audience. So mate, it's awesome to see how that's evolved, and with that, the audience we've created to then be able to further monetize if we decide to go and do other ventures, for example.
What do you love about it?
I love being able to so I asked you a couple of hard questions, and I actually was trying to understand how you think, and I tested you on your thoughts, and I asked you a few tricky questions, which when you answer them, it's like you hold a mirror up to me, and then I'm reflecting on my own journey as you answer yours. So for me, I get to put people on the spot and learn, but it also helps me learn more about myself, because as you share, it's like holding a mirror and I get to reflect on my own journey. And I love that about it.
Daniel asked me this when we were in Queensland a few weeks ago. So there's two parts. One, the travel. I do like traveling and going around. Even though it's still work, it's still traveling. I'm not staying in the same spot. I think as a real estate agent, when you're working one suburb, it's just there. But it opens the door up to travel, which is great. But the second thing is I'm still passionate about learning off the top 1%. Like sitting in front of people like yourself, asking questions that, like, for example, the question about that, my last question with the relationship is, well, I'm in a new relationship right now. It's a question for myself, to be quite honest with you. So it's being able to learn from the best, because who else would I ask?
Yeah, it's good. So what, in 3 years from now, where are you guys going to be?
Like geographically, or in terms of just
Podcast, life, business, entrepreneurs?
it's the both sides ecosystem is both sides podcast is a media engine, which will help feed the subsidiaries, but it's also going to provide value to our greater audience, man, and connect us with the top 1% and have fun along the way.
Yeah. So both sides just being that top of funnel. I see ourselves, if we're talking 3 years time, definitely podcasting, not just in Australia, but like we definitely want to take this overseas, go explore, and I think it's going to be fun. Use it as a top of funnel.
Like you, the one-to-many model.
Yeah.
It feels like the way to go, right?
Oh, it's a no-brainer.
It feels like, and it's not till you start to experience or have conversations with people in that world where you start to question, oh, hang on a second, there are some people making, like mega money from, say, social media channels. I don't even know the right lingo with all this sort of stuff. And it's
didn't even know what a reel was.
I didn't even know what a reel was. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's pretty interesting. So anyway, okay. Well, I'm a huge supporter of you guys, and I wish you all the best. I
you too. Oddi Poddy as well. Listen.
Yeah.
All right. Thank
Thank you.